The Author's Universe 26 Xyborn. The Xyborn and the Xybornx. Everything so far written in this creative work is of the author's universe and is the creation of the massive expanding spatial system, the mess, within which the race of ideas exist from which everything else has been created, finishing with the creation of the Xyborn and the Xybornx vessels. The Roy in mind. Everything the really orderly inhabitants, the Roy of Homosphere, knew about the massive expanding spatial system, the mess, was provided by the honourable existence Heroi and the supremely honourable existence She-Roy, who were in the mind of every Xyborn and Xybornx vehicle. The Heroi and the She-Roy. The Xyborn was built with the Heroi in mind, and the Xybornx was built with the She-Roy in mind. The race of ideas, the Roy of awareness, responsive thought, that manoeuvred these vessels on their course through the massive expanding spatial system, the mess. Xyborn 1. The first Xyborn vessel to be made was created by the author in the author's laboratory, which is also the author's library, of the author's universe, of which this document is a part. Remember, the author's universe 25, the mess 1. The author's universe. The author's universe and the massive expanding spatial system, the mess, are two parts of the main arena of the author's universe, created in a simulated laboratory, also known as the author's library, which the watchers can see, the viewers can respond to, and the reader can comment upon, as the author can too. See the author's universe 17, the Watchers 1. Welcome. Thank you for being there, and welcome to the author's universe. The first two vessels. As the Xyborn was being created, so too was the Xybornx being made, and from the Watcher's perspective, they are the first of their kind. There is nothing written of their being any such like before them. The pilots. The race of ideas, the Roy of awareness responsive thought, art, from the He Galaxy and the She Galaxy, were the pilots of the Xyborn and the Xybornx vessels, and the really orderly inhabitants, Roy, are their crew, and they are made from the race of ideas, the Roy of space, time and matter, STAM. See the Heroi and the She-Roy. The Xyborn was built with the Heroi in mind, and the Xybornx was built with the She-Roy in mind. The race of ideas, the Roy of awareness responsive thought, that manoeuvred these vessels on their course through the massive expanding spatial system, the mess, and categorized. Where something exists without the ability to make a choice, the Roy exists, and where there is such a thing as choice, in you or in any other creature, the Roy are capitalized. The reader's response. In response to the jettisoning of the Xyborn into the massive expanding spatial system, the mess has been a renegade. Durability. The author was perfectly aware of the mess and knew exactly what the vessels had to be able to endure to reach the other side of the expanse. But the pilots only knew of the environment. Stam, the Roy. As far as Stam, the race of ideas, the Roy, all in lowercase letters, are concerned, they just are, existing like atoms, made in and of space, time, and matter. The Roy. Art, the race of ideas, the Roy, with at very least a capital R, believe Stam exist without awareness, responsive thought, such as they do have themselves. Remember. Universal edict. And in particular, in all of the Roy and the Roy of choice, there is a universal edict, out of which the spawning ground and ascension can be found, and it is from this that my story begins. Valuation. The Roy of choice had knowledge of the Roy and themselves, and particularly of there being a difference between them, and the valuation system developed, like there might be the value of one kind of order over that of another kind of order, and the value of one was supreme over the choice of another. It all began from here with the author's universe 7, the Roy 1, the sphere. Every world the Roy inhabits is a sphere, more than it is a planet, and there is no place thought of where they do not exist, for the Roy are not a race of beings, but they are the race of ideas that inhabit them and everything else. The Roy. The Roy, all in capital letters, are the really orderly inhabitants which art claimed to have created, having put Stam and themselves into an order, bringing into being something new. But like Stam, they have no evidence of another dimension than the planes of Roysphere in which they exist. Remember, the author's work. The author's universe is, here, a written and a videographic work, and materially exists virtually as a two-dimensional plane, also referred to as the planes of Roysphere, where the author places letters and pictures, also known as characters, which form the author's universe. The letters forming words, sentences and more. It is the massive expanding spatial system, the mess. C. The author's universe 17. The Watchers 1. The Watcher. You are the Watcher, and what you recall of what you have read is not what you saw, but what you have thought of. For what you have seen, what you are currently seeing, and what you shall continue to see is a code.